Okay, one more. I'm making and uploading all of these videos kind of fast because I'm trying to give everybody enough information to at least get started. This video is going to be about how to use forms if you use like a rubric or a scale versus percentages on a math test. So we're going to start, again, Google Drive, student data. So we've done a lot with Alyssa's data. We formatted her form in a way that, like, if she were to take a test based on her goals with math, reading, writing, that we would enter the percentages for those responses right in here. We're going to format Ben's data a little bit differently because we're going to say that Ben gets scored on a rubric or a scale versus getting the percentages like you would on a math test. So we've already created Ben's form, but we haven't done much with it. First question is always the date. When you type date, it automatically assumes that you want the answer to be the date, and it does that for you. So now we're going to create a new section, and we're going to call this section, just because this is where we tend to use rubrics and forms most in my program, we're going to call this Daily Living Skills. And we're going to set this up to keep track of like behavior, classroom behavior, that kind of a thing. So we're going to add a question, and I want to know if Ben was ready and had needed materials. Some of our students have goals that say that they're supposed to be responsible for getting them and all of their selves, or I'm sorry, for getting themselves and all of their materials to class on time. So that's what I want to track with this. Only this time, instead of making it multiple choice, I want to do a linear scale. You can have any numbers that you want. If your linear scale, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say. Our linear scale is going to go 1 through 7. Let me check something. So 1 through 7. The label for 1 being the lowest, so did not have materials, or however you want to say that. 7 was totally independent. Totally independently had materials. So there's our question. Now I'm going to make a copy of that because I don't want to redo all of the formatting. The next question I want to keep track of is, did he have appropriate, holy smokes, I can't spell today, classroom behavior. Goodness, sorry guys. Appropriate classroom behavior. So because I had copied that question, it kept everything the same. Linear scale, same labels, everything like that. We're going to do one more, duplicate that. Again, something else that we might keep track of. Did Ben allow others personal space today? Okay, so those are the things that we are keeping track of on a rubric. Again, same linear scale. Any numbers that you put in there don't matter, but we're keeping track of his on a scale or a rubric versus entering percentages. So, responses. We've already sent this form. It's already linked to this spreadsheet. So we're going to go in and take a look at how that looks on the spreadsheet. It's taking forever to load. Sorry, guys. There we go. So you can see this time, instead of titling my questions benchmark 1, benchmark 2, and benchmark 3, I actually put titles to those questions in, and it automatically puts those titles into this form. So I'm going to do a little bit of formatting here real fast. Maybe, if it loads. This working business is obnoxious. It's driving me nuts that we can't get this done faster. Okay, so I am going, oh, not that, sorry. I am going to lock these first two rows, and I'm going to enter my formula here. So we did this same thing in Alyssa's spreadsheet, but I will show you her formula. So we enter percentages for Alyssa. So her formula divides by 100 to get the percent out of 100 because 100% is the highest score you can get. So it makes sense that that's the way that this formula is formatted. In Ben's, the highest possible score that he can get is 7. So when I enter this formula, what I want to do is enter, I'm still going to pull, equals says that I'm entering a formula and not just a number or words, whatever. And I'm still going to enter a formula for average because I want to know what the average score is. And I am still going to take column or cell C3 through C and close my brackets. Here's the difference, that instead of dividing by 100, I'm going to divide by 7 because that is the total possible points that Ben can receive on this assignment. And then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, it's telling me that this isn't going to work because I haven't entered any data yet. I will show you, I'll show you that changes when you do enter data. So one more kind of cool function. So I want each of these questions to calculate the same percentage, and I don't want to have to go in and enter each of those formulas because the formulas are going to be the same. So if I can get rid of this, it's giving me the error message. If I scroll over this little corner, you can see this little blue box here. Until I get these crosshairs, I can click and drag over as far as I want to fill these cells with the same formula, but for those columns. So release. Again, no data, so it's giving you an error signal, but I will show you. So this column D, this formula, automatically transferred and said we are going to calculate the average for D3 through D instead of C3 through D, C3 through C. Same thing over here. This is pulling the average for E3 through E. So it's kind of cool. Instead of having to go back in and type each of those formulas, you can just, like I said, go till you get the crosshairs right in this corner, click and drag over, and it will automatically populate those cells with your formula, but adjusted for those columns. Pretty nifty. So now, let's go here. We're going to go enter some scores for Ben. So these are our data links, easy access to our forms to enter data. We're going to hover over Ben's name. Don't click. Just takes a minute. Hello. Okay, sorry. Ben's name. Follow this link. And here we are at Ben's form, and we can enter our data. So again, first question's always the date. We're going to enter data for Monday. Ben had an okay day. He made it to class on time. Maybe we had to tell him, hey, get out the door, go to class. So it wasn't completely independently, but it was pretty good. He had great appropriate classroom behavior. Unfortunately, he had a really hard time keeping his hands to himself and had to be prompted several times. However, your rubric works. So that's how I'm going to score Ben for Monday. We're going to submit. I'm going to submit another response and score him for Tuesday as well. And we will just submit a week's worth of data. Generally, you don't wait till the end of the week to enter all of this, but hey, life happens. Okay, so Tuesday, Ben had I don't know, we'll say Tuesday Ben had kind of a rough day. He was late to class because he got stuck perseverating on the iPad, whatever else. He had to be prompted several times. He was then grumpy in class and had terrible classroom behavior. He did allow others personal space even though he was frustrated, so he did that completely independently. Good deal. Submit. And like I said, we're just going to work through a week's worth of data here. My program, we actually record data for every block. We run an accelerated block schedule, so students have 4 classes a day, and we enter data for each block. So if I was working with 3 students for us a particular block, at the end of the block, I would just sit down and do this real quick. You can see it doesn't take much time. And we actually record data each block. If you do every day, every class, however you want it, however often you want to do that. So Wednesday we did a little better, minimal prompting to make it to class on time. Great classroom appropriate behavior. He was participating. No issues with personal space. Okay, Thursday. So like I said, you can see how quick this goes to enter data once you have it all set up. It's super convenient. I'm entering an entire week's worth of data in just a couple minutes with a serious lag time on my computer. Thursday was a halfway decent day. Not too many promptings for anything, not anything stellar, but okay, cool. So that literally took a few seconds to enter data for that day or for that block or however often you're entering data for. Friday, let's say Ben was really motivated to get his end of the week reinforcer, just had a great day, was on to class on time with all of his stuff, had totally appropriate behavior, and did a great job maintaining personal space. I realize not very many of our students have days like that, but hey, we're going to go with it just so I can show you, okay? So literally in just a few minutes, I just entered data for an entire week. So now we're going to go over here to our sheet, and you can see it is throwing this data in as I'm entering it in real time. These look a little bit wonky. I'm going to change those really fast. Even though we are entering these scores on a rubric that goes 1 through 7, I still want to know what percentage. And without having to go through here and say, okay, this is a 7-point scale, so what percent of 7 is 6, and having to figure that out. I obviously know that a 7 on a 7-point scale is 100%. I don't want to have to calculate that. So I've put in these formulas like I showed you just a few minutes ago. So it's pulling the scores from C3 through C, so this whole column, and as I continue to add scores, it will continue to pull them. So it's taking, oh geez, sorry. It's taking the scores from C3, starting at C3, and continuing all the way down through as many data points in column C as we get. Only instead of dividing by 100, it's dividing by 7, the total possible points. So the only thing that we have to do to make this look right is to tell it to give me a percentage. So on my 7-point scale, Ben is scoring roughly an 80% at being ready and having needed materials. 80% of the time he's doing okay, not needing a whole bunch of prompts. You can obviously see a few days where he didn't do so well. Okay, same thing, 85% for appropriate classroom behavior and 88% for personal space. All of those percentages are automatically calculated even though we are entering these on a linear scale. So I think that should wrap up this video. Again, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I will try and answer any questions as we go. I hope that's helpful. Thanks.